Hello, Laura Hughes here, your Director of Adult Faith Formation. Today I wanted to talk to you about the saints. We've been talking all Easter season about the Holy Spirit. We've been hearing about wonderful things that the Holy Spirit did in the lives of the apostles and the disciples of the early church. And we take heart from all of the marvelous signs and wonders that the disciples were able to do with the help of the Holy Spirit. And that brought them a lot of joy. And one place in the church that we see joy is in the lives of the saints. And some of them lived very difficult lives, but they all lived it joyfully because they had the joy of the Lord. So reading about the saints can be fun, and it can give us perspective on our lives. One thing you might not realize about me is I am a big fan of books and a big fan of libraries. I used to volunteer in the library with my kids when they were little and read stories. But today we're going to have story time for adults. And there's a wonderful book that I found written by a man named Mike Foley, who lives in this diocese and was a parishioner of Father Red's at his last parish. But it's called Drinking with the Saints. And it's a wonderful book. He has a real talent for telling stories about the saints. And then at the end, he recommends a drink to go along with each saint day. So today, May 26th, is the feast day of Saint Phillip Neri. So I'd like to read to you from Mike Foley's book his description of Saint Phillip Neri. Even as a layman, Philip of Neri was a force for the good as he visited the rough quarters of Rome and struck up conversations that would change people's lives. After being ordained a priest, he founded the congregation of the Oratory, the Oratorians. St. Philip could prophesy, read others' hearts, and see heavenly spirits. He also had a brilliant and wry sense of humor, which he combined with psychologically astute spiritual instruction. When a wealthy, vain nobleman, wishing to test his own powers of endurance, asked for the saint's permission to wear a hair shirt, Philip said yes, but on one condition. He had to wear it on the outside of his clothing. But St. Philip's greatest attribute was his burning love of God. And we mean that literally. Once during prayer, a mystical ball of fire entered his mouth and lodged in his chest, causing his heart to be so aflame with divine fervor that the saint had to rip open his clothes and cool himself on the stone floor. After his death, it was discovered that 2 of his ribs were dislodged over his heart, which had expanded with the love of God. On different occasions, St. Philip's heart would become so filled with joy and consolation that he would roll on the ground and cry out, "No more, my Lord, no more." The ardent heart of this beautiful saint calls for a drink. We found 2 cocktails with the name Heart Warmer, and the second is a drink called a Heartburn. So again, this book, Drinking with the Saints by Mike Foley, it's a wonderful book. That's just one example of some of the profiles that he gives in this book. And it's a fun book to share with your family, your neighbors, a group that you have. Just kind of a fun way to celebrate being Catholic and celebrating the lives of the saints. It's a great way to try new drinks as well. So I encourage you, you probably have some books about the saints lying around. There's various types of books of saints. I went around my bookshelves. As I told you, I love books, so I have a lot of them. Went around my bookshelves and I found a few that I had. This one is The Joy in Loving, and it's daily quotes from St. Teresa of Calcutta. So that's a really nice, if you just want something daily that you can add to your daily prayer, that's a good one. If you want to get into something deeper, maybe you have some biographies laying around. This is a biography of John Paul the Great. And so it's always a fun thing to read more about saints that we have experienced in our own lives. I think most of us remember when John Paul II was alive. We remember when Mother Teresa, Saint Teresa of Calcutta, was alive. And so we understand how difficult it was to be a saint in our times, and they can be really inspiring for us. The other type of saint book you might have is a compilation of stories of different saints. If you went to Mass at Christmas at St. John Neumann, you may have received the book Rediscover the Saints. So this has stories of 24 different saints. They're short chapters, so it's really easy just to pick up, read a chapter, and then you have something to think about during the day about that saint and how they might inspire you in your life. Another compilation of saints is My Life with the Saints by James Martin. This is a good one to do with a book group. There's 16 saint profiles, but the wonderful thing about this is Father Martin talks about how studying these saints and reflecting on the lives of these saints is reflected in his own life and how it may have changed his spirituality. So all of those books about the saints are good. You may have some lying around. Go look for them. Another great resource is our formed.org subscription. We have a parish subscription to formed.org. It's an online Catholic content. And you can just go to formed.org, say, I'm a member of an organization, and then there's a pull-down menu, and you can type in St. John Neumann and select the one on Bee Cave Road in Austin, and you're in. Then you can watch movies, you can listen to audio recordings, you can even read books via the formed.org app. There's also Bible studies if you want to study something. And there is a series on there called The Reformers, and there is an episode on St. Phillip Neri. So if you want to know more about him, you can go to formed.org and look that up, and I'll put a link in the posting where you see this video. So I hope that you can take some of this information about the saints and use it to improve your spiritual life, maybe with something you're struggling with, you've lost your joy. Well, let's remember that joy of the Lord and remember St. Phillip Neri's encouraging words. He said, "A joyful heart is more easily made perfect than a downcast one." Have a blessed day. Goodbye.